Hello, welcome back to another fabulous video channel. I'm Jacob from Jacob's Books Corner, and today we're talking about extreme horror novels because it's Halloween time, and I'm reading a lot of horror books. I'm gonna be horrored out. I have a strong feeling. This is the video I'm most nervous about, so I figured I'd just get out of the way first. That's how things work like this, right? Essentially, we're gonna be reading 5 extreme horror novels. I ain't gonna go into detail about some of the things that are inside this book because I had to experience it, you have to experience it, and that's how I feel. So I'm gonna list a list of trigger warnings down below that I can remember in the description. I have 5 books here. I've checked, they're all categorized as extreme horror in one way or fashion, and I have a little bit of what each book is about except for one of them, and I'll say that till the end. I truly have no idea what that book is about. No idea. I think I've seen someone talk about it, though I have no clue. Don't remember. Probably will as I start to read it. Also, I'll mention some of these I'm listening to on audio, and I'm gonna really say either it's gonna be a blessing or a fucking curse. Truly don't know, and we're gonna find out. I also tried to pick short books and failed, so there's also that for us. Okay, let's get into the list. We have It's Me, Charlie. The only person I know who had read this is Gabby, and she hated it. That's fine. Me and Gabby don't tend to agree sometimes. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. This one follows like a stalker. We're in the mind of the stalker. That's the whole point of extreme horror. We're in the mind of the bad person. So this one follows a stalker. It's like 69 pages, and I heard it's vile, so not bad for us. We have This Book is Full of Bodies. This one is in the mind of a serial killer. I heard it's kind of fun. I'm assuming American Psycho is the vibes here. Then we have Woom, which is about a man who goes back to the hotel room where his mom, and we're seeing what happens there. I started that one. I feel like that's probably the first one we read just because I'm already like 30 pages into it. Then we have Dead Inside, which is about, this one's gonna get a little gross for you guys, but there's really no way to explain it. 2 people who love eating people and they fall in love in a hospital. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'm assuming it's super bad, but the cover's so pretty. It's not gonna hurt me like this. And then we have Maeve Fly. I have no idea what this book is about. I think it is the longest book on this list. And I am particularly nervous because I don't know, but that eyeball looks like, it just looks good. The whole cover is really doing it for me. This is not my first forte in extreme horror. I've read quite a bit of extreme horror before this. I don't know where my limits lay. Gonna be honest with you, I'm assuming anything sexual is probably where my limit lays. I will tell you this much. I do not believe in pushing myself to a brink of not wanting to read anymore, falling into a reading slump, any of that stuff. So if I end up DNFing this video, it's possible. I read extreme horror, I read horror, like I said, I'm reading a bunch of horror, and it all varies. I read some like really light stuff, I really read some really not light stuff, and so I feel like I'm gonna be okay, but it does make me nervous, and so we're gonna see if I like listening to stuff better or physically reading it, so we'll see how that goes as well, and I'm gonna take you along on the journey as much as I can, as much as I want to. That being said, roll the clips, Jacob. Let's do this thing. I want to come here and give you guys the first update in this video for, what is the book called? This book is Full of Bodies. So I am listening to it as an audio book, so I'm not going to pull out direct quotes. At least not yet. I got it on Kindle Unlimited as well, so in case this book sounds of any interest to you. It opens with a man describing his perfect life. It reminded me a lot of American Psycho, I guess, in that regard, just because of how mundane he is, I should say. Oh, it's the way that he is trying to present himself is super mundane. And then it slowly devolves into something a little bit more horrific. We're very much aware of the fact that he has these sadistic thoughts. There's this liking towards a person in it. I don't want to give too much away, but also like there's just some stuff that happens within the first 4 or 5 chapters of this book, which I would declare it probably why it's in the extreme horror category. It has to do with SA. It's very graphic, very in your face, and the way it's talked about and the way that different people react to it and things, very uncomfortable, very shocking, which I think was the point of it. There's this really weird and inappropriate relationship that is inside this book that I was not hoping for. I was kind of hoping to at least read like 1 or 2 where it wasn't in the book. I don't know if that's gonna be the case or not. I don't know. But anyway, I'm only like 10 to 15% into it. The one thing I do have to say, even though like I'm very uncomfortable, it made me cringe, and I'm having a hard time wanting to jump back into it. I do really like the writing. I think it's also more disturbing knowing that the author who wrote it is the one who's narrating it to me. There's just something about that which makes it seem more realistic. So I'm really hoping that there's some really, really big, like that could never happen before in here, because I don't want to feel icky in that regard. You know, obviously That being said, I will update you guys when I'm deeper into it. It's nowhere near like I'm gonna quit or whatever, but we have barely scratched the surface, so we'll see. I was planning on doing more updates for this book, but to be honest with you, I didn't like it, and so I didn't really have anything to say about it. It didn't really gross me out as much as I thought it was going to. There are disturbing angles to it, but ultimately, the book full of bodies or whatever just did not work. I found the main character, even though like parts of it is humorful, okay, the way the main character comes across, and I do think it's pretty unsettling that the writer of the book read the book and some of the things that are done in the book and some of the ways the body being rid of and things are those lines that happen throughout the books, or the bodies I should say, there's more than one. Those type of things, the interesting relationship that is the very big point of the whole novel, those are things that do concern me as like a human being, because it's read and written. I don't know. Writing is weird, okay? Writing is weird. As a writer, a personal writer, I write from what I know. So that's what makes reading books like this. Not reading them, because like, to be honest with you, like my imagination runs wild. I have a feeling, I mean, I know for a fact I've written extreme horror. My only thing, anytime I've ever like ventured into this particular era of horror in my writing, it normally is some fantastical or sci-fi, some like weird paranormal angle. It's never like really based in true reality. I don't want to write from the mind of a serial killer, in my opinion. It doesn't interest me. So those things, that's a different tangent for a different day. Probably will talk about again though as we continue on with this video. That being said though, I want to come in here and just close out this book. The relationship once again was extremely uncomfortable, which I think was the point. There are a few deaths in it that also are, I would count, shocking, but not like super duper vile. This is rated 18 plus on the book. It's counted as splatterpunk. Other splatterpunk books I've read or other 18 plus books I've read, this is like a cakewalk in my opinion. Now I have to say it's a cakewalk for me, but it's probably not a cakewalk for you unless you're already familiar with the genre, because there are some very, very graphic things that don't have to do with violence. I mean, the violence is still graphic, I just didn't think it was that graphic. What that say about me, I don't know. But there's other stuff they do in this book that has to do with a relationship. I don't want to spoil anything else, so I'm trying to be vague for other people's sake. He has a liking towards a younger person inside this novel is all I'll say, and that alone was very uncomfortable and disturbing and very graphic. Partially unnecessary, like there's parts of it that are unnecessary. Other parts, not so much, depending on like where you're trying to base your character, your story at. The character himself, I found it interesting. I can't remember his name. I remember horrible with names, but I found him to be interesting, but he just ran the same sentence over and over and over again. And in the first like 10 to 15, maybe even like 50 pages of the book, I was like, oh, that's really interesting writing. It's an interesting style. It's funny. I'm having a good time. I'm disturbed because like, ew. But like, also like, what an interesting POV. Then by page 80, I was like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, you are annoying. You're not, like, he's like, oh, I know I should feel bad for doing this. I get it. You're a serial killer. I get it. This is a memoir. I get it. You're trying to convince me that you are doing something wrong and I should feel bad for you for doing something wrong. And him having all these warnings throughout to stop reading this book if it's getting too much for you or something along those lines. And they're always put in such weird places that make no sense to me, because it's like, that's not the part that's extreme to me. Like, that's a cakewalk. This over here, not a cakewalk. Like, I don't want to experience this. This is fine. So this is where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I think I'm landing on like a 2.5. Not a great start to this video. I have a feeling the next one, the one I'm currently reading on my Kindle, will be higher rated. I don't know how much higher, but overall I'm enjoying that one just a tad bit more. Yeah, not a great start to this video, but I did finish one. There you go. There's my review. Let me know if you want me to go in more detail in future, if I could do more entries into this. I will probably scatter it throughout. This one just didn't really, like, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to like dive into the disgusting nature of the novel. I just don't recommend the book. I do feel like I'm kind of like out of the loop for that one though, because it does seem like a lot of people do enjoy this story and this character and things. I'm not saying don't give it a try, but of course always look up the triggers. But we're in extreme horror. I think that's pretty much said beyond said. I'll see you for another one. We're reading Woom. I don't know what this is about. I'm starting to understand why this book might be called Woom. I wanted to read Yellow, which is what was recommended, and with this recommendation, it was recommended those two with some pretty, like, disgusting faces or whatever on TikTok. And so I was like, I want to read Yellow. Yellow sounds more interesting, and I can't find it without having to pay, like, $12 for it, and I'm not paying $12 for it. I paid already 99 cents for one of these things, and that's about as much money you're gonna get from me for this video. With Woom, this follows a guy who is going back to the hotel room where his mother has died. Him and his mother didn't have the best relationship, and we are hearing stories as essentially. So he calls a worker. This is something he must be doing on regular. They're like, okay, and he's like, you have to get it right, and they got it right, and it's like this. It's a bigger woman. I'm only saying this because it's very described that she's a bigger woman. She's somewhat uncomfortable because the room is really disgusting because it's a really nasty hotel, and that's it. I'm assuming that he was born in this room, and that's what we're leading up to. Is it leading up to his birth? We're gonna hear stories about his mom. Seems like maybe she was like a drug user, maybe not the best person. Those type of things I think are coming. They're broken up into different stories that he is telling to this lady, and she said some really gross things. I don't want to get into it because I'm just like, we don't need to talk about that in my personal opinion, but it was gross. And not like, ew, stop reading, but like, just gross. I also have a feeling, like, a part of me was like, oh, is he bringing her to commit the same crime that his mother did to her as, like, an act of revenge, using these, like, women to do this as a serial killer would? I'm actually thinking maybe it's going more to the lines that he's going to, you know? I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm not deep enough into it. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I think the writing is also very interesting. I always think that when I read disturbing things, I always think the writers are pretty talented. So, like, it's got that going for it. I'll update you when I'm deeper. Oh god, that's a horrible word for this book. When I'm more into the novel, I would say it's short. Woom clocks in at 130 pages. It shouldn't take me too long to read. Honestly, I have to finish it today. More updates to follow. I'm going to give you guys an update on Woom. So I read the second chapter, or the first story. It's interesting because it's all told from this like interesting point of view. The story is, this one follows a couple. They end up having to go to this hotel room that they're staying at, and so how they're connected and things. But this one was about a man who would do anything for this girl. One of those things ends up being heroin, and then they end up having to drug run heroin essentially, and it's very gross. I'm not going to get into why it's gross. This is a particular thing that I keep noticing a lot in this particular category, I guess. Because the troop had a lot of bodily fluids, that's all I'll say. That's what I'll say. And this one was very similar in that regard. I don't understand the point. I don't understand. And, like, I'm happy that, like, the character, like, I think her name is Shayla or something like that, is, like, as he's telling this story to her, she's like, okay, that's great. But, like, do you need to go in such graphic detail? Because no, you don't. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And it stopped, and that was good. And then they went into something else that was gross. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Bodily fluid. That's why I don't like in these things. Good to know. That's my limit. That's my line. If it has it, I'm going to read it so I can very fast. I'm getting the gist of everything. I'm enjoying it. I like the writing style. I think I'm intrigued by the premise. I'm intrigued by the characters. I like the idea of reading stories throughout, combining into this like bigger picture if it's done well. So overall, this one is a much bigger win for me, and I will update you guys. I don't even do it story by story because there are like 12 of them. That seems ridiculous to me. I'll update you when something else interesting happens, and I'm like, oh, gotta tell the vlog that. Nothing has happened so far because I don't want to get into like the bodily function part because it grossed me out and I don't feel like talking about it. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. So I'll let you know if anything else happens, or I'm like, oh my god, we gotta talk about that instead. Equally gross, but not having to do with this. Thanks for listening. I'm about to go lay down, a bit stoned. We'll be more stoned here in a minute. And I figured it'd be kind of fun to read Woom stoned. Maybe this is a bad idea. I'll let you know how it goes, probably when I wake up. So I got grossed out, and I figured we can talk about it, because I have a minute. Oh, I'm stoned. I think I mentioned that a lot. I don't know. I am stoned. Probably why I got grossed out. I visualized it so badly. But here we go. Are you ready? You're not. I promise. This chapter is called Prolapse. If you guys don't know what Prolapse is, and I'm not going to actually, you know what? I'm not going to describe it to you. But no, that's what this chapter is called, okay? You're like, if you know what that is, you're like, oh, what does that mean? You know what? You use a visualization of this one, but that's what that means. Like, what? Oh my god. Is he, like, training her to give birth? Disturbing shit, though. Oh, also, reading stoned did not make it easier. It just made it more visual, which was not very pleasant. So I'm gonna come here and close out one. I don't know who this is by. I finished it a little earlier this evening, and I did not care for it as much as I felt like the story itself had a very clear directive. So I can't really speak on that behalf, but all I can really say in regards to me is, even though it's like has a very clear directive, I didn't really like the direction it went. It was pretty clear. The title, I think, gives you a pretty good idea of kind of what you're in for, and I was pretty blown away, I guess, by the idea of it, and also the execution of some of the things. I think it got truly disturbing in the final 2 stories. I will have to say, because this is like the 3rd or 4th one I read for this video, I am seeing some common things pop up throughout the video. Maybe this is my 2nd one. I'm just in between so many books right now, so it just feels like I'm reading more than, or that I'm like done with more than not. But either way, this is like the 3rd or 4th one that I read, 2nd one that I think I finished. Children, babies, and sex are the biggest things that keep popping up in these stories. And it could be that because I asked, like, this was a recommendation, it could be that people think these are the things that are most disturbing, most disgusting, and or things that could like really make your stomach churn. And to be fair, there's elements of this book that did make my stomach churn. I cringed a bunch while reading this. It's much worse than the other one that we finished. You know, it's definitely a step above that in content and things. And also, if you have like anything towards, I would look up the trigger warnings. I don't really get into it. I really decided I'm just taking a different approach to this video than I originally had. I thought maybe I'd down, share things with my fiance or anybody else in my family who's going to hear about these gross things that I'm reading. But in reality, one, a lot of these things are like subject lines of off limits for a lot of people that I know, so like I can't do that. But also, two, I don't really want to talk about it on the internet because like this one I didn't feel uncomfortable while reading like I did with the first one. It was a 3 out of 5 and I've just reevaluated how I'm doing this video. I'm really just going to talk about the point of the story. So yeah, this one followed a man who got a hotel room. I think I mentioned that before. He ends up getting a hooker coming into his hotel room and he had a big plan for her. And that's really what it's about. Dumbest way to say it. It's intermixed with all these different stories of all these different couples or people going through similar experiences or things leading up to the big reveal. And the big reveal was definitely something. Don't get me wrong. It just wasn't everything that I wanted it to be. I feel like the first third of the book was like maybe like a 4-star book, and then it just dropped down to like a solid 3 by the end, and so we're landing on a solid 3. We still have a few more to possibly be 5s. I think the only one out of the list of books I haven't read and books I started and stuff, I feel like Maeve Fly is the only one that could be a 5, so I'm saying it now, 2nd book into this video, that hopefully Maeve Fly will be that one. The next book I'm going to physically start reading will be Charlie, just because it's the shortest thing out of this entire collection, so I figured just get done out of the way before you jump into whatever Dead Inside is. So being said, let's go ahead and jump over to a different Jacob talking about It's Charlie. I'm sure I might talk about, I think I know the gross thing. It's gross. I think it's gonna be different reading it. But definitely I think I know what it is. It's the same thing with the Dead Inside. I'm pretty sure I know what that is too, but it's gonna be different like reading it. I'll update you guys soon. Hello, I'm going to come in here and update you guys on the next book. So the next book I started is Hi, It's Charlie. Understanding the title of that book now. I guess I'll stand over here so we can place the book over there. Hi, It's Charlie follows a man. He is an overweight man. I only say this because it's very much commonly talked about throughout, at least the first 30 or so percent. This is like 60 pages, so like the first like 30 pages of the book, or like 25 pages of the book, wherever I'm starting. Yeah. One of the big things I saw online was spit. That was a big common thing. So if you don't like that, not for you. It's a very interesting concept though. And also it's always more disturbing when it feels like it could really happen. Disturbing when it could like actually happen in real life. And this is definitely one of the stories that definitely feels like it could happen in real life. About a man who ends up finding smut on the internet, realizing, oh, there's a whole community out here, ends up starting a booktube, book talk, book thing page online, and he ends up conversing with this girl named Jessie, who he ends up taking a liking to, he's now driving to her house to go kidnap. That's where I'm at. And from what I understand, based on the opening, there's a lot of different things that are very triggering that's going to happen next like 30 pages, which is crazy to me how much an author can stick in such a small amount of pages. So it hasn't gotten to, I mean, it's been gross for sure, but it hasn't gotten like that extreme. It's just the way people describe things, like smell, taste, those type of things I find to be more disturbing than the actual content of what's disturbing. I have a strong feeling, depending, it's all through Charlie's point of view. I don't think we're gonna get to like the really graphicness of like what people talk about, but Gabby said this is like one of her most disturbing books she's ever read in her life. So, or there's a scene in here that's like so gross or whatever, so I'm curious to see what that is. I'll keep you updated. I'll probably update you guys when I get done with it, is my best guess. It's not that long. Really questioning my ideas of what an extreme horror novel is, but that's fine. I'm gonna come here and update you guys on It's Me, Charlie. I finished it. I ended up on a 3.5 stars. Overall, I felt like enjoyment-wise, I enjoyed parts of the story more than I enjoyed others. It truly made me uncomfortable with the idea of this could actually happen. And it had a juxtaposition of the first book where I was like, well, that made me uncomfortable because the author is reading it, which makes it seem more realistic. This wouldn't make me uncomfortable because I watched several TikToks of the author. In that regard, I feel like that the author portrayed Charlie in such a way that Charlie himself felt really realistic, and it felt like the entire plan and the execution, most of the execution, I feel like some parts not so much, which is not a bad thing, but most of the execution also felt pretty particular. Also, it was like one of those stories where a lot of the things that was done to this girl, very sadly, was done because it was what she wrote about, and so like it makes you think about like, oh my god, does that mean I shouldn't put this in my book? Oh my god. And so it makes you like, if you're a writer, have that existential like crisis of something you've never really thought about before, and now I thought about it, and now I'm like, oh, that's kind of disturbing. Okay, well, let's think about that next time. Interesting. So I went in on a 3.5. My biggest issue with it was part of the writing. I just feel like it probably went through a few more rounds of editing, and it would have been pretty good. I think as a casual viewer, someone who just reads this for fun, I don't really think it's going to matter. So that's a personal complaint of mine. Other than that, it's 3.5. I will be, guys, when I start probably dead inside. Like I'm going to be when I finish that book, probably. Normally, as you guys know, I have multiple updates in this vlog. At least I try to come in with a few different things. I just really didn't have anything to say about this one either. So we're here again. I read Dead Inside. I think the biggest takeaway I have from Dead Inside is, one, it was really short. It was like 90 pages long. So it was promoted longer than it was, which was great because of the content involved. I'm going to get into a little bit what this book is about, and I will have to say almost everything about it is triggering in one way, shape, or form. So honestly, I would just skip to the next one. Let's go and talk about Dead Inside. Dead Inside has a beautiful cover. I will not doubt it whatsoever. Actually, this is my favorite cover that the author has released. And part of the reason why I wanted to read it to begin with without even knowing what the story contained. So I wish I kind of knew what the story contained. I had somewhat of an idea based on somebody else who I think read the book or read something similar to it and had said, oh, you like this, you'll like this, or whatever. Just because it was really well written. I think the characters were extremely, in a weird way, likable. Like, it's like a really weird thing to say because they're doing really despicable things. One of the common things I keep seeing in all these novels is that the narrator, if it's in first person or if it's in third, they talk to you as a reader, and they're like, this is the point in the novel where shit gets really gross, or oh gosh, do you feel bad for me now, or don't worry, I'm not that horrible person, or I am that bad of a person, but I just don't care. Something out of those lines. It happens in almost every single one of these that I've read, and it could just be a common trend in these 5 books, or it could be a common trend in this genre. I don't really know. I don't know how much I like it or not. Part of me does like it, just like for this one, for instance, let's talk about. It's again, huge trigger warnings for just that everything underneath the sun, so just be prepared. Really just some big things here. So this is about 2 people who fall in love at a hospital who have the same sickly desire to have sex with corpses. That really is what the bulk of the story is about. Interestingly enough, I really found the relationship interesting. I found both characters to be extremely fascinating. I didn't mind reading from the point of view of our main character either. A horrible time wasn't a great time, and obviously the disturbing aspect of it is what I described to you, and it's in very graphic detail throughout the entire book, and there's consequences to some actions, not consequences to all actions, and it doesn't go every place that I thought it was gonna go. So like, I mean, it has that going for it, but it went to a lot of places. A lot of like, oh my god, you're going here? Because somehow like the girl was a little bit more out there and liked a little bit more out there of things. But that being said, with Dead Inside in particular, that really is the gist of the plot. I felt like the ending was okay. Nothing super revolutionary. Also kind of how I felt about like almost all of these books. I've not been blown away by the whole book. Normally, I think they start off really good. I'm intrigued by the first like 20 to 30%, and then it just like pops off and falls away. And that was the same thing with Dead Inside. I think I'm running on a 3 objectively. I don't think I can rate anything lower because it was too poorly written. I really liked the writing style. I would read more from this author, hopefully containing different content. I mean, the content wasn't that bad. I just was bored, I guess. And I think this desensitization also is somewhat kicking in because, like, for instance, I'm reading Maeve Fly, as you guys know, and I'm almost not that I should be out there later on today. And that one, I'm like super, like, I can't even tell if it's extreme horror. That's where I'm at. So, like, I'm gonna do a ranking at the very end of this video, ranking which ones are the most extreme, which ones are not. But please do understand that I read all these in like 4 or 5 days, which is the fastest I've read any of these books. Partially because I was so interested by all the story ideas, but also partially because I was just intrigued to see where my limit is. So far, I've read them all the way through. What is a limit? Who knows? I kind of got away from the whole baby thing. I kept reading all these things where everything was happening to children, and like really small children. And there are things that happen in these books to children. I'm not saying that, and that's really gross, and I didn't really want to talk about it throughout this video because it's extremely triggering, and it's partially triggering to me and to like other people who watch my content, and so I was trying to be a little vague in that regard. But like, I really got out of that one subject, which is great. Maeve Fly is not over, so maybe maybe not. That book has a whole lot to do with, I don't know. I'm getting off subject of Dead Inside. Moral story here, it's a 3. If you're interested in if people who like to have sex with necrophilia is what it's called, if that's something that you feel like you want to read about, there you go. I'll update you when I finish Maeve Fly. We can close out this video. So we are starting Maeve Fly, book that I'm very much looking forward to. It's been on my radar for a while now. I say out of this video, we have this one and Dead Inside, which has been on my radar. Both those books have respectively been on my radar the longest, so I'm excited for both of them. But that being said, well, I'm more excited for this one than Dead Inside now that I know what Dead Inside is about. Maeve Fly, very interestingly enough, follows our main character, Maeve, as she is working at what I'm assuming is Disney, but they won't say Disney, yet it's like they talk about Cinderella and Ariel all the time. So I'm assuming she works at Disney. Her and her best friend do. They both want to become these megastar like people, and she has a side hobby of doxing people and getting off to it. That's interesting. I have to say, the main character is amazing. I feel worried if I'm saying that because I'm only 20% in, I think. So the only reason why I'm like worried to say that because of the fact, what if she ends up being a horrible human being, which I'm assuming is coming. She's just not there yet. But she's so nonchalant about things. The way she talks about things, I think is hilarious. I'm laughing a bunch. I'm having the best time. This is the closest we've gotten to an extreme horror for a 5. So like, good for us. For trigger warning graphic content that we've seen so far, there was this one-off line about plucking someone's eyeball out with a spoon, which is, you know, okay, cool, let's do that. And like I said, the doxing stuff was also talked about. But other than that, it's not been really graphic. It's even like, I would even say like the sexual stuff has been pretty PG compared to other things I've been reading for this video. Overall, very much enjoying it. The common comment was that it's brutal and it's gory and things. So I'm assuming we're just not to the point where it becomes brutal. Both the main characters, Maeve and her best friend, seem pretty much out there and have been doing things pretty risky. I wouldn't be surprised if we are leading into a life of like the crazy. And we're just not there yet. But I'm having a great time and I'm excited to see where it goes. I'll update you guys soon. Why? Because I did finish it. It was a 5-star read. Part of the reason why I had a hard time updating it because it didn't really get into the extreme horror territory until probably the last like 10 to 15%. It does go, it's very graphic, very violent, gory, very disturbing, just like everybody said it would be. It just wasn't to the very end. There's a few moments towards the middle where it kind of evolves in that, but I absolutely loved this main character so much. I understood exactly where she was coming from. I didn't agree with obviously all the actions that were taken that she took, so ultimately this was perfect. I cannot wait to read more from this author. The writing was gorgeous, and I hope a lot more people read it. I will definitely be recommending it more and more as time progresses. But that being said, I did finish it, which means this video is over. So let's run through the 5 books I read for this video, and also I'll rank them based on the most disgusting to like least disgusting. So the first one I finished for this video is This Book Is Full of Bodies, which I eventually rated at like a 2.5. Then I finished Woom, which I rated a solid 3, and then I finished It's Me Charlie, which I think I gave like a 2-star. And then I read Dead Inside, which got a 3, and then we also have Maeve Fly, which got a 5. Now let's rank them. Now the ranking process is actually very different from the initial my rating process, just because something's like super gory doesn't mean I rate it high or low type of thing. So I definitely say the most disturbing book I read this entire thing would be Woom. I think that's probably my top one. It just dealt with some things that made me really uncomfortable. So I would say Woom is the first one, then it would go Dead Inside for obvious reasons here, then it would probably go It's Me Charlie, and then This Book Is Full of Bodies, and then Maeve Fly. It's personally to me, nothing happened in Maeve Fly that was disturbing to me, but it would be disturbing to other people, so definitely on the bottom of the list. And This Book Is Full of Bodies has a lot of graphic essay in it. By the time the book ended, I was kind of desensitized to it. So that's my listing. Those are the most disgusting. Let me know in the comments if you have recommendations for other extreme horror that you think would be fun for me to react to, and if you want more like reactionary vlog towards it next time than just these updates, because I didn't really think this vlog was very interesting. I'm still going to post it. I read these books for you. You're still going to get the content, but overall, not my favorite 5-book series I've done. And yeah, alright, let me know how you guys feel in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.